Hi guys, Arthur here from Homeowner DIY. In today's video, I am going to move an outlet from one side of this bathroom to the other, and then I'm going to repair all the drywall. So this house was built in 1984, so the outlet, the plug, is not a GFCI. It's not a ground fault circuit interrupter like we have for modern code. Guys, any plug within 3 feet of a water source, so a sink, needs to be GFI by today's standards. So after I move the plug, I'm going to tape all the drywall, mud it. When it comes to drywall, it's not all that expensive to do yourself. The problem is having the technical skill to make it look like there's nothing ever there. So guys, what I will do is I will teach you what I've learned over the years purely by asking people and trial and error. I've never been taught how to do drywall, so I consider myself to be a DIYer when it comes to it. But I'm sure by the end of this video, there's something here that is going to help you. So what we'll do now is we'll look at our bathroom. All right, this is our bathroom. So we have our outlet there, and we're gonna move it there. So I've already looked in the attic. The wire does run through the attic, but we'll do a quick test here. Okay, so we have power because I haven't shut the breaker off. So the wire comes down the wall, and it's dead here. So the plan will be, I'll cut a hole. I'll probably leave a space here, unclip the staples. We'll cut a hole here. We'll put the box in. I'll rerun the wire down, and then we'll patch up the wall. That is the plan for this job. So what we'll do now is material and tools. All right, this is our materials list. So I have 1¼ drywall screws. I have wire staples, drywall tape. This is loading mud. It says all purpose. This is our finishing mud. So this is a thinner type of mud that you don't need to add water. This is our GFCI, a box in case I need it. 1.5 screws, and then plywood to connect the cutout section of drywall back to the original that is on the wall. Guys, this is what I believe I need for material for this job. So what we'll do now is the tools list. All right, this is our tools list. So for drywall, I have a 3/8 and a 12-foot knife. This is my drywall kit. So I have my pan, scissors, sanding blocks, and other stuff. Drywall saw. This is my mud mixer. Hacksaw. Power tools. I probably only need the drill for putting in the screws and then drilling the hole in the top plate, as well as mixing mud. I have wire strippers, an electrical tester. Guys, always verify power is off because in case they mark the wrong breaker. A bucket for mixing up and thinning out my drywall mud. I've got a 4-foot level, a 2-foot level, and then hand tools. So that's measuring tape, knife, and hammer, anything else I might need. Guys, this is what I believe I need for tools for this job. So let's get started. All right, this is our breaker panel. So here it says second bedroom, master bedroom, ensuite washroom. The ensuite will always be off the master, so a main bathroom will be like in a hallway. But it looks like these breakers here is going to be for the bathroom. This lower breaker. So with that off, we'll go check our bathroom. Okay, our light is off, so power should be off now. Says it's still alive. Alright, so my volt stick says we still have power. So to confirm, we will plug in a light. The plug is still live, guys. This is why you should always check. So we'll go back and check another breaker. But the light for the bathroom is off, as well as the hallway light. So this one is obviously on another breaker. Okay, so it wasn't this one. We'll try this one here. And we'll go back and take a look. Okay. Power's now off. So the light is switched on and I have no power, just to confirm. With that done now, what I can do is start cutting a hole here to rerun the wire to the other side of the bathroom. Okay, this is our exterior wall. I forgot that this house has poly, and you also see the insulation, so we're just going to pull the poly back. Okay, so they put a block, and then this is the 2x4. I thought the stud went all the way up, but that's perfectly fine. We'll make this work. So there's one staple here, and at the top, there is the top plate. Alright, so our top plate is here. It's a double up 2x4, so from here 3 inches down would be the top plate. And if we look at it this way, we have 3 inches. So from here to here, it's 6. So everything works out well. So I'm going to remove this staple. We'll take up this staple. We will pull the wires out of the box. I'll go into the attic, we'll pull this out, and then we're going to rerun it down the other wall. Alright, to get the box off, all I did was I put my flathead in behind, and then I banged it, and then just try to pry off gently. Remember, the plastic is old too, so it can break. But with the box now disconnected, we need to take the lower wire staple off. So there are the tabs on the outside of the staple. So just try to pry from the outside. And guys, don't do this. Try to avoid this because you can damage the wire, and that's the last thing you want to do. Alright, with that done, I'll take out the other staple and then we'll start on the opposite wall. Okay, so this mark here is 45.5 inches. That is the same height as the bottom of the plug that was on the other side. So we're just going to follow that. Now, because there was a block, there's going to be no block on this side to push the box out, so I'm going to do that myself. But what I'll do is I'll make a line and then we're going to cut into the drywall using a handsaw to hit our studs. Guys, always use a handsaw, don't use a power tool, because if there's a wire, like with the opposite wall, you can cut through it with a power saw. Oh, and there's a vent here too. So that is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to stop right there, and then I'm going to make a box to the ceiling. And then I'm going to cut it out. We'll also cut the other way to see where the next stud is. I haven't hit anything by this point. Alright, so from the wall to the edge of the door is 24 inches over here, which means there's nothing in this wall here for studs because it's not necessary. So at this point here, I'm just going to go up the wall because there's no point in mudding more than is necessary, and then I'm going to use the plywood to put the two pieces together. Alright, so with our hole cut out, guys, what you need to do is you need to bevel the very edge. So this is what it looks like before it's been beveled. So just take a knife, make sure it's sharp. And just go around everything like that. So you see how this has all been done. But if you don't, and you have this stuff here sticking out, what can happen is it'll bulge out your tape. But I'll do this little section now. And what I will do is I'm going to I'm going to drill a hole for the wire to come through. I'm going to drill it on this side here to avoid the vent. And one other thing to notice, that with our stud here, we have poly, so the poly comes, because this is all exterior, it'll come over around the stud and then continue. And then the one other thing I'll do is I'll put the block on here, and then I will nail the box on here, so it's ready to go. To install the block to space the box farther away from the wall, I'm going to use two number 8 by 3 inch deck screws. Also, screw this in on an angle because of the vent. You're not going to be able to screw it straight in. Alright, so I use my new box. Make sure the tabs are tight up to the block. And if we look up, we see the hole for our wire. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the attic and then move the wire into the hole and then feed it down the line to our box. Okay, so the wire went over there and now I brought it over to here. So we see the plumbing vent there and then the wire that's going to go down the wall. So I'm going to staple it here, somewhere over there, and then head back to the bathroom. Alright, so I pulled the wire through the box in the back. The ground is connected. We have our hot, our neutral staple, other staple, and then we have extra slack. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to connect the GFCI outlet. Okay, so for the back, we have line up here. So it says hot on this side, it says white on this side, so the hot is a small side. The hot also has the brass screw, and then the neutral, which is white, has the white screw. I'm connecting the ground first. It's a green screw on the bottom of the outlet. Next will be the neutral, and then last will be the hot, which is black. Now I'm going to screw the outlet into the box. They're the same Phillips as the hot, neutral, and ground. Screw them until they're hand tight and go turn the breaker back on. Alright, so this is our outlet. Before you put the drywall back on, mark the edge of the box, mark the edge of the box so you know where to cut the hole. So that I'm going to cut out, I'm going to plug the other side. We have power, everything looks good. So now I'm going to take my pieces of plywood, we'll scab this around all the way, and then we're going to put the piece back in. Alright, so we have our plywood in. So I'll show you guys just for this piece here. Guys, always be aware of where anything is in the wall, like the plumbing here, the vent. So I marked to stay on this side. It's a shameful thing to hit something you installed or something that's already in the wall just because you didn't mark it out. So for plywood, we'll roughly just split the difference. And guys, make sure to hold the plywood tight to the drywall. And it doesn't matter if it's plywood and drywall, plywood and a 2x4. When you screw it in together, they want to push each other apart. And then you can see how it gets sucked in. And then run your finger over it to make sure that they're slightly depressed in. You don't want to go through the paper, but you don't want anything sticking out, otherwise you're going to see it later on. But with that all done, I'm now going to do the other side. Alright, so I put the vapor barrier back in. So I put tape on the back side going this way. I put my plywood around, that'll connect the two together. Now I'm going around and I'm going to tape this side. So this hasn't been taped, and then this has been taped. No matter what you do here, you will not get a perfect seal. You have to live with what you've done, but you can do the best you can to get it back to as airtight as possible. So here I'm going to screw the last piece back on. So it's the same as the other drywall. Make sure that the screws are depressed in, that they're not going to stick out, but they're not so deep that you're still catching the paper on the outside. Always run your finger across the screws, or you can also use a metal putty knife, because you're going to hear a ticking sound if anything is sticking too far out. Okay, so for this here, I'm going to take the piece that I cut for the box, and then I'll stuff this in here, and then this will be back together. Guys, when you do your poly, any holes, if you stab the poly with something like a screwdriver, make sure you just put a piece of tape over it as well. Like I said, it won't be 100% perfect, but try to do the best you can. Alright, so we're gonna take our tape. Guys, use scissors. Don't tear the tape like that, because you're not gonna get a clean edge. But I've pre-cut my pieces, so it's going to fit on like that. I've cut all the pieces already for this. Now the next step is to put a thin layer of mud across, and then we'll push the tape in, and then we're going to put a thin layer over the tape to encase it in the mud. This will be the first step for finishing our drywall, and then every other step after that will be to go wider out until it's a nice smooth surface all the way across. Once we get to that point, that's when we'll sand and then fix any defects or anything that is still there. Alright, so now we're going to mix up our mud. So it'll turn into a whipped cream type of consistency, but mix it for 5 minutes and you should be good to go. So this is the loading mud, the all-purpose mud. This is thicker than the light joint compound. So for the first coat for the tape, use the thicker mud, and then for everything else after, you're going to use the lighter mud. Before putting the tape on the wall, make sure that you soak it in water. 30 seconds is fine. Push the tape onto the wall with your hands, and then use the 4-inch putty knife to embed the tape tight to the mud and push out any air so you don't have any bubbles later on. Here I'm embedding the tape into the mud using the putty knife. You don't need a lot of pressure, just make sure it's nice and tight. If you push too hard, you'll actually drag the tape, which you also don't want to do. So this is going to take a lot of practice to get decent at it. I don't consider myself good by any means, but I learned through trial and error. But you want to put a thin layer of mud, because if you go too thick, then it's going to be more work to smooth it out later, and then it's also going to be more sanding, and that's the last thing that you want to do. But if it doesn't look like mine, don't beat yourself up over it. So this is the last piece for the seam in the middle. There was a drywall seam when they originally boarded the wall, but all I'm going to do here is the same thing that I've done with everything else. You can notice on the left side how it's too long. You don't want to overlap your tape, so here I'm going to cut it back. But if you overlap your tape, once again, you now have more work to do to try to smooth it out using the mud. Now with the tape on the wall, you can see how the mud is wide and it's underneath the tape. Don't leave any dry spots underneath, because once again you will get bubbles. Gently flatten the tape out, get out any air, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start to encase the tape in a thin layer of mud. Less is more here. It is better just to go with less and then add on the next coat than go too thick, because now you'll have more sanding and more work to do to try to smooth it out. One thing I've learned over the years is where the corners are, be very gentle with the pressure, because since your tape will be perpendicular, you can drag or peel one side off. So go light with the pressure. So at the bottom you can have an idea of what it looks like. You should still be able to see the tape through the mud. If you can't, then you've probably gone too thick. And the lines in the bottom piece of tape, this type of thing you want to clean up as well, because you're just going to create more work for yourself later on. But the very bottom, this is an idea of what you want to see. And then the top vertical sides is not enough mud yet. So one thing I can't emphasize enough, this is something of practice. No matter how many videos you watch, no matter how much I talk about, it's not going to help you if you have no experience doing this. This is something you're going to have to learn by doing. This is the other side. Everything is done now, so we're going to allow this to dry. So our taping phase is now done. The tape has been encased. So this is the end of part 1. Now we'll start on part 2.